Well, it's darts only on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Let's dive into Colorado next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free, and we are available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
All right, welcome in. Good morning on this Thursday. Mitch Sherman of The Athletic here with you, along with Connor Happer of Omaha's 1620 The Zone. Connor, officially today, we are inside of 1 month until Colorado visits Nebraska on September 7th. Can you believe just 30 days? It doesn't quite feel right yet that we're 30 days away from the Buffs coming into Memorial Stadium.
I always, for some reason, make that point. It's like we always count down to the first game. And then you have the rest of the season after that.
There's more games after that.
Yeah, it's like we're also, if we're 20 whatever days away from the first game, we're like 27 days, 28 days away from the second game. Think about that.
Amazing.
Like, whoa.
So I'm sure we're going to talk a lot more about this game as it gets closer, but just a little primer today. I know you did, because everyone did see the darts only bonanza that was occurring on the internet on
Very
Wednesday.
funny.
Yes. So Colorado posted a video from practice, purportedly, that was not in any way staged, of Shedeur Sanders stepping up in the pocket at Deion's instruction. You could hear Deion on the mic in the background. Step up. He fires a pass, a dart apparently toward the end zone, and then the camera angle cuts to a receiver, a close-up of a receiver catching the ball and celebrating with Travis Hunter. So it didn't really look like the same play on one end that it was on the other. I don't know. Maybe it was. It's hard to see what's going on in the end zone from the wider view, but the Buffs labeled it with a darts-only moniker, and that led many, many other teams and sports organizations around the world to do the same, basically making fun of Deion Sanders in Colorado.
It's amazing how many thoughts I have on this. I was just collecting a bunch in my head. So first of all, they followed up yesterday. They posted Colorado at CU Buffs football. They posted both of the videos that they mashed together in their entirety.
It was officially two.
It looks like it's a real play. Yes. So.
Yeah,
First of all, there is that they're not faking it, but there's a lot of other stuff. Number one, you're a program that is basically a reality television show. You don't have, high quality. You're taping this off an iPhone, like 2 iPhones at practice. It's very confusing to me. I don't really get that. So that's the first point. The second point, and I think this is the big one. They could have had a lot of fun with this, right? So they come back yesterday afternoon, and they do the shush emoji and the shrug emoji, and they post both the videos. This is a program that bothers, and they want to, they have a hard time understanding why they bother people. They take themselves so seriously. That's it. They're the butt of the joke for one day, for obvious reasons, and I think everybody knew that was making fun of them, including myself. The video it could be real, but it's the type of team that you would believe would crop 2 videos together to make it look like one video to make themselves look good. And then their response was very on brand as well. So I think that's that was the thing that I think bothers me the most and underscores Colorado as a program right now. They have a way of getting under everybody's skin, and they're enjoying it because they take themselves really, really, really seriously.
I guess as long as they enjoy it, that's fine. You're right. You're absolutely right. They could have had a response that just kind of bought into all of the fun or doubled down on the fun that other programs were having, but it doesn't seem like that's in Colorado's DNA at this moment. And I think that's, when we say that, what we're saying is that it's not in Coach Prime's DNA. This is not what Deion would do. Deion would not respond to people making fun of him by going along with the joke. So,
No.
Hey, that's cool. And that's what makes it fun. Like we have a lot of, I can tell. So in the go into some background here, like when we look after we post our show, we can see where the downloads are occurring. Of course, the state that has the most downloads of our show, Connor, I don't know if we've even talked about this, is Nebraska. The state that has the second most downloads of our show historically, not just like when we talk about the Buffs, over the course of the whole show since we started in April, is Colorado. It's not Iowa. It's not Kansas, South Dakota, whatever. It's Colorado. Maybe it's a population thing, border state with the most people. I don't know. But and I'm not sure if it's Nebraska fans in Colorado or what it is. And I don't even know what my point is here in making. But Deion's out there and doing his thing. And people in Nebraska are noticing. And people in Colorado are noticing that people in Nebraska are noticing, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Oh, yeah. They love that. That is a really good point. They are really in love with the idea. I saw. So, of course, off of this yesterday, as we're still a little bit in the summer doldrums of college football, like this was the thing that was happening yesterday. And so, the take machine of college football had takes, including ourselves, post this on Twitter or whatever. But immediately Colorado fans will flock to the takes about the thing. And they'll be like, hey, we rent free. We're rent free. Like,
we'll get some rent free. We'll get some rent free hashtags today.
And their defensive, like Coach Prime, like I think it's an interesting thing that they have going on there. I don't know if it's going to work, but
I'm glad they're doing it.
I'm certainly glad they're doing it. But the first thing that always gets said is, hey, we were irrelevant 2 years ago. So however good or bad you think we are, this is awesome because you're thinking about us all the time. And it's hard to argue with it. Like, I don't know. It's kind of hard to argue with that point. Now, I don't know if they're fighting for the same things, I guess, or those fan bases are fighting for the same things. But they're going to stick in people's craw as long as Deion Sanders is there.
So like Idaho, Montana, Arkansas, several others got involved and made their own darts only social posts. Nebraska did not, but the Big Ten Network did make one for Nebraska of Dylan Raiola throwing a pass in one video, clearly followed by a different video of Malachi Coleman hauling in a bomb. Dylan threw, like a 10-yard crossing route, and then Malachi's catching a 50-yard pass that's coming at like the sharp angle from up in the sky. So that was funny. Just a total troll job, which is basically what was happening around the
I'm sure
internet.
Matt Rule enjoyed that.
I'm sure he's aware because he's aware of everything. So when you think he's not aware, he's got it, or he's got somebody who's telling him about it, and he's seen it. I want to pose this question as we wind down on the Nebraska-Colorado talk in this opening segment of the Thursday show. Nebraska's not really in a position to troll Colorado at this moment. The Buffs are 3-0 in the last 3 times that these two teams have met as members of leagues outside of the Big 12, although Colorado is back in the Big 12 this year. So what do we expect in the next 30 days as far as trash talk goes in this rivalry? Who's going to heat it up, if anyone?
Nebraska won't engage. I have been disappointed at Nebraska's lack of engagement with this over the last 2 years since Matt Rule's been here. And really, when Frost was here as well, when they played him in 18 and 19, Nebraska just hasn't really gone there. I know it is a thing in the locker room, in the facilities. I like it is just general fodder to walk around and, like, if you're a college football fan, reference Colorado, make fun of Colorado. Like that is just how you talk in college football these days. But so I know Nebraska's doing it, but they won't admit it and they won't say it out loud. And there will be nothing to stoke the fire from Nebraska's side. That's their thing. And I'm kind of disappointed by that as a person who just likes to sit as a third party and, lay back and drink my coffee and enjoy the show for a month until the game happens. But nah, Nebraska's not going to engage here. And there's no reason for Colorado to engage either because they won the game by multiple scores last year. So I don't know if this is going to get hotter by the time we get to September 7th, which is sad to me.
I was looking to see is that August 29th? Yes. So the Colorado-North Dakota State game is 2 days. It's a Thursday night opener. Yep. So they're going to know, Nebraska's going to know the result of the Colorado game when the Huskers play UTEP on August 31st. I would say perhaps there would be some comments from Nebraska people after the UTEP game if that goes well for the Huskers, and Colorado's game did not go well 2 days before. Now, those are both big ifs. You could have the opposite happen. But if that's the case, then I could see a few barbs being thrown on that Saturday late in the afternoon. Matt Rule, if he doesn't want it, is probably going to have to remind his players, especially his young players. We did hear one from Ja'Cory Barney. I believe it was in the spring where right. he basically said, "Hey, wait till week 2. I'm going to do my thing." Yeah. But you could have more of that. You could have more of that on August 31st. I don't think so before that, though. They're going to make sure that these players in Lincoln are focused on game 1, because game 1, in case you haven't noticed, hasn't gone all that well for Nebraska in recent seasons.
It's bit them.
Yeah. All right. That's enough on Nebraska-Colorado here on August 8th, but we're going to get into that a lot more over the next 30 days. So stick with us after the break. We are going to get into the 120-player roster in Nebraska. I had a piece out on The Athletic Thursday that we'll talk about. Please subscribe and follow us on all of the podcast listening platforms. Love to see you. Leave us a comment or a rating. You can follow us on Twitter at LockedOnNEB. Email the show at LockedOnNEB@gmail.com. We'll be back after this. Okay, Mitch Sherman here for Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of MLB. And I start off this ad read with that disclosure because it is pennant race time in Major League Baseball. We're Royals fans. We were watching last night when Bobby Witt hit 2 home runs to beat the Red Sox at Kauffman Stadium. Take at least one game from that series. The Guardians are in a free fall. They've lost 5 consecutive games. Things are tightening up in the American League Central. It's not just the wild card race that we've got eyes on as fans of the Royals. So super exciting time. And if you want to get tickets, Gametime makes getting tickets easier and faster because prices on the app go down the closer you get to first pitch. Whatever direction you want to go this summer with your sports or entertainment watching preferences, whether it's concerts, college football games, Major League Baseball games, if it's a hot ticket, it's there on Gametime. You can see views from your seat. You can customize your spot in the stadium. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
All right, welcome back. Connor Happer here from 1620 The Zone and Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Speaking of The Athletic, Mitch put up a story today that you can go read, projecting or guessing or educated guessing Nebraska's fall camp 120-man roster. So there has been a time within the last decade that Nebraska has actually distributed the 120. Like, here it is. Here's the piece of paper. This is what it looks like right now. And then obviously if there's an injury throughout camp, they could change it or whatever, but they'll give it to you so you can actually go, watch practice and look and see who it is. At this point, they do not. So it's up to the media each time that they go to practice to put it together themselves, which is fine. So Mitch has done that. He's at least attempted it. I don't know, it might not be 100% correct, but it's close. Very close.
It might be one player off. It might be 100% correct. And it's hard to say it's 100% correct because the 120 last Wednesday is different than the 120 today, and that 120 is different than the 120 on Saturday night when we were out in the stadium, and it might be different again on Friday tomorrow when we get to go watch a few minutes of practice.
So you're giving yourself a little margin for error, which is good. Always want to build that in. Please give Mitch some leeway here. But it's interesting. I was just perusing through it this morning. Like there's a lot of guys who we would consider walk-ons on that roster, and there's a lot of young guys. I mean, we mentioned this yesterday. 25 defensive backs. Most of them have never played a snap for Nebraska before, or have just played special teams. And so that's, big picture. Those were a couple of the things that I noticed right out of the gate. Mitch, like when you did this, and you put this exercise together, what stuck out to you?
Well, it's good that you use that terminology, players that we consider walk-ons, because that's kind of how it is today in college football, and that's going away. Like next year, we won't even be saying that. Next year, it's just they're football players and they're on the 105-man roster. So,
and they play for
what
Nebraska.
you will about they get paid, of course. That's how it goes. Now, you could still have traditional walk-ons in the revenue share world of college football, and some programs will do that. Nebraska might still do that so that you don't take away from Dylan Raiola's revenue share in order to give it to the tight end from Lincoln Lutheran who wants to walk on.
What high school are you going to throw under the bus?
I'm going to throw a high school under the bus. I'm just about to throw a high school under the bus. I don't know. Sorry, Lincoln Lutheran. Gretna East. That's it. I'm going after them. It's like right out the back door here. My daughter's school, soon to be my son's school. Yep, it's it. Sorry, Coach Hopperman. So yeah, they are walk-ons as we currently know walk-ons. Here's something interesting. Preston Okafor, a DB out of Omaha West Side, who was not in the scholarship signee list of recruits. He's on the 120. He's a true freshman. Connor Shutt, the high school quarterback who's playing tight end now out of Wahoo Newman, true freshman. He's on the 120. And then you can look around and you can see that Sincere Safula, who's a DB out of Florida, that was a scholarship signee a year ago. Ramir Stewart, a DB out of Pennsylvania. He was a scholarship signee a year ago. Those guys are not on the 120. Now, some of these players who aren't on the 120 are injured. Those two are not known to be injured. So you got to earn your spot every year. Just because you got a scholarship out of high school doesn't mean that you're guaranteed a spot, not just on the 85 as we currently know it, but on the 120, which is really pretty unique to Nebraska. I found that interesting.
It's going to get more competitive next year. I mean, we think about what gets, cut from the 120 to 105, and maybe it's not, hard cut to 105 next year, but there will be less roster spots for Nebraska to utilize next year. It'll, I'm thinking about it now. And as you kind of laid this out, does it help like the almost scholarship guys, right? There are preferred walk-ons that Nebraska welcomes into their program, and they never label those guys. They just, you could just tell who they are by their high school stats or whatever it might be. Preferred walk-ons that come into Nebraska, those guys are, if there's a bridge and one side is walk-on island and the other side is scholarship island, they move a little closer to scholarship island, where maybe, the guys who, just want to play football at Nebraska and wear the N for 4 years, and played out in whatever, Western Nebraska or something like that. I know this is bad for us today. That they probably don't plan on playing a snap or two in their career and just want to kind of be there. Those guys just aren't here anymore. That's the opportunity that Matt Rule talks about, and that those are guys that you just don't have space for anymore. Every roster spot has to be carefully curated as you look toward next year. Nebraska has some leeway with what they have going on right now.
It is going to be a hard cap at 105 on the preseason camp roster. That's the one thing I think we can be sure of next year. You're going to go from 120 this year in camp to 105. Now, there may be a group of players who are still a part of the program in the offseason or even during the season, but maybe they're not active or whatever the terminology is going to be. We'll find that out as this the terms of the antitrust settlement get more clear in the months ahead. But 105 is going to be the hard cap for camp, like it's 120 this year. So if you look through this list that you could see on The Athletic, 50% 15 of these players are not going to be a part of that a year from now. And Nebraska had a hard time getting it to 120, like 121, 122. Those guys they felt were deserving of spots in camp. Like they put in the work in the offseason to get to camp. And now it's not going to be those couple of players who are on the block. It's 15 more. So think about cutting 15 from this list. And I know they're not household names. I know they're not players who are out there scoring touchdowns or sacking the quarterback on Saturday, but they are important to Nebraska football in the eyes of the coaches. So that's going to be as much as Nebraska, Troy Dannon and Matt Rule try to downplay this 105 roster limit, however it looks, it's going to be very difficult. Some of the decisions and conversations they have to have over the offseason ahead.
It's interesting though, because they're always limited in who can be on the 10 whatever during. I mean, it's been 110 before, it's been 115 before, and now it's 120. Yeah. Like they've always been limited there. So you're always making choices, but you have the flexibility on, you basically have a built-in kind of practice squad. So maybe that fall camp number or the active number will come down even further. And then you have 105 of it. It'll be really interesting to see how it works.
I think they're going to let them have 105 in camp. I don't think they'll go under that. If that's the roster cap, everyone within that like full team status is going to be invited to camp. I'd be really surprised if they went 95 or 85. That's just a low number because you start to have, guys get hurt like we've seen in the first week of camp at Nebraska, 2 season-ending injuries, and that's difficult. Yeah, you can replace those guys on the 120, but it's difficult in any kind of an injury situation if you go below 105.
Yeah. So a lot of changes coming, of course, next year. I would encourage people to go check that out on The Athletic. You can, there's some guys like Mitch said, just to hammer home the point. And Rule said this as well a couple of weeks ago. There's going to be some scholarship guys who aren't on it, and there's going to be some walk-on guys who are. So go take a look at Mitch's story on The Athletic today. When we return, we'll come back. A couple of things to clean up when we come back for the other side. Also, a bit of a preview, I suppose, for tomorrow and what we have coming up. But first, an appreciation for you. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen of the day, every day. I have plans for you. Your second listen should be the Locked On College Football podcast. So I'm sure there will be discussion about Colorado in the Locked On College Football podcast today. Big picture stuff. What are the topics going around college football right now? Spencer McLaughlin's got you covered. You can find it on YouTube. You can find it wherever you get this podcast. That's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, back on this Thursday for the final segment of the Locked On Nebraska podcast. I'm Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Connor Happer of Omaha's 1620 The Zone is with me. Connor, did you see the Dick's ad that was going around the internet on Wednesday featuring Candace Parker and Patrick Mahomes?
Okay, no, I somehow missed this. Well, you'll have to describe this to me. I don't miss much on Twitter, but I missed this one.
All right. Well, we'll make sure that you see it after the show. So Candace Parker is in a Dick's sporting goods store, and she's on FaceTime with Patrick Mahomes because, it's Patrick Mahomes and Candace Parker. And Patrick's like, hey, will you pick up a climbing ladder for my daughter? She's going to be a pro basketball player. And Candace is like, Patrick, your daughter's 3. And then Donovan Mitchell, not Donovan Edwards of Michigan football. It was Donovan Mitchell, the NBA player. He comes in and he's talking to Candace. She's getting beeped in by, if that's a term, she's call waiting. Others are ringing in to Candace Parker on her phone. And one of the calls comes from the entire Nebraska volleyball team in their locker room. And they're looking for, like, somebody said, a scrunchie. They want knee pads. So, it's pretty cool. They're all standing there with the big, the selfie stick or whatever, or Merritt Beeson with their long arms is holding out the phone. Very cool that Nebraska volleyball is included in this ad with these superstar pro athletes.
Wow, I mean, that is great. So I'm watching it now without listening to it. Really cool. And first of all, you can always count on, like, if there is a Nebraska reference to anything, anywhere, ever, it will be found. So that one could have snuck underneath there a little bit, but of course it did not. Second of all, and I think this is the important takeaway. I mean, this is an Adidas commercial, basically. And
is everyone in Adidas gear?
Everyone's in it. So Mahomes is an Adidas
guy. Yeah.
And Candace Parker's wearing an Adidas hoodie, and there's like a Dick's/Adidas at the end. Interesting that of all the Adidas programs around the country, Nebraska volleyball is one that pops to the head right away. And like the Adidas brand is something that is like, it's not necessarily going away. Mahomes is trying to stop it from going away, but there's less and less of it in the college athletics branding world right now. So Nebraska volleyball is like a poster child program, I think, for that and what they're kind of trying to do with it. Adidas has always been the brand that is like, hey, we're not just football. We're not just this, like we're trying to do all of these other things, Olympic sports and whatever. So that's really cool. And maybe you can read something into Nebraska being involved.
At this point, it's not even surprising. I mean, if it was another volleyball program, it would be. If it was a college soccer team, it would be. But with Nebraska volleyball and how they've kind of transcended volleyball interest in America, I don't even think it's surprising. Like I would almost expect to see Nebraska volleyball in that commercial. And what a cool NIL opportunity for the women on the Nebraska volleyball team. They're getting something for this ad for sure. I believe it's Lexi Rodriguez is already like a specific athlete who endorses Adidas. Yeah. She signed a deal with them last year. So great that she gets to take along her teammates for this ad. And we're going to see, final thought on Nebraska volleyball, we're going to see a big documentary done about the 2023 Nebraska volleyball season that ESPN has worked on for the last year. And that comes out toward the end of the month, I believe, right around the time that John Cook's team opens the season in the state of Kentucky on, I believe, August 24th. So, hey, they're not going away. Nebraska volleyball is going to continue to be front and center in the sporting world. And just because the stadium match with 90,000 people happened last year, not this year, I think you're going to still hear about them for the next few months.
This is close enough to this conversation. Before we talk about tomorrow, so Texas Tech, who obviously had Patrick Mahomes go to their school, they made the brand switch from Under Armour to Adidas, and along with like putting the Adidas logo everywhere, them being their apparel provider, like outfitting all their athletes or whatever, they're putting the Patrick Mahomes logo kind of next to everything. So if you buy a Texas Tech Adidas shirt, it also has the Patrick Mahomes logo, which I mean, basically he's trying to, be the
Jordan
next
brand.
Jordan. Yeah. The Jordan brand of Adidas. So that's what Adidas has for it right now. How cool is that for Texas Tech though, to have like that personalized kind of touch like that is, and they could sell technically the best quarterback in the NFL. Dylan Raiola looks like Patrick Mahomes, so I don't know. Maybe they'd be interested in something like that.
I'm sure Dylan loves Adidas. Like that might be part of the reason he picked Nebraska. Like if you really get the honesty going, because I mean Patrick loves Adidas, so Dylan has to do it too.
All right,
he doesn't have to. He just wants to.
Tomorrow, Nebraska's going to have some practice available. We'll go out and we'll take a look. About 20-30 minutes in the morning. I haven't been out to a practice this entire year, so I'm looking forward to seeing just the body types, and I'll definitely be tractor beamed over to Dylan Raiola. Just want to see the ball come out of his hands, or whatever it might be. Maybe he uses his left hand too. His right hand, his left hand, all of the different hands for Dylan Raiola. So I'm excited to watch practice tomorrow, and then we're gonna do a show after that. So we'll give you some.
We're gonna try
immediate post practice thoughts on Nebraska tomorrow.
Yeah, so we're gonna just set up shop in Lincoln somewhere. If you've got a place that you'd like to offer to us to come do our podcast and then post it immediately around 10 a.m., reach out. LockedOnNEB@gmail.com. You can message us on Twitter. So we're gonna watch practice. The part we get to see, it's not like Saturday. We're just going to see 20 minutes, and then we're going to talk about that on the pod. Like you probably won't see it in your feed at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. Like you usually do. It'll probably be closer to 10, like an hour delay, but it's going to be fresh takes from outside of the Hawks Championship Center. So can't wait to try that. What are you looking forward to seeing? You mentioned Dylan and watching him throw the ball, but where else in that short window of time that we get to watch are you going to go and take a look?
Well, like I said, I think it's just general. Like you want to see the athleticism and like not to, you can look at an entire position and say this group, not to label them, like this group is this, from an athletic perspective. Are they long? Are they fast? Are they, like what are they trying to do at all of these positions? And I think the answer that we'll get, given that, most people have seen this already, is that like they have a lot of different body types at these individual positions, and they're trying to kind of be positionless, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that'll be good to get a up close look at. Also, I got to see this next Sioux guy. I got to see Keona Davis. Like, what's that going to look like? I just take a picture of him so I can have it on my phone in 4 years when when he sacks Colt McCoy to win the Big 12 championship. No, wait, that didn't happen.
Colt McCoy's son. At this point, I feel like you can only be disappointed by what you see with Keona Davis. He's been talked up so much. I'm going to go straight to the left tackle, to the offensive line, to watch and see what's going on at left tackle. Who's
that
playing
seems
there?
More important, Mitch. Good
who's
idea.
Who's the number two? And then I always just kind of gravitate to the wide receivers. I just like to watch those guys move and see who is the most graceful, the most athletic. I think you can tell a little bit more about the wide receivers from watching them at practice than you can some other position like the linebackers or even the defensive backs, because the wide receivers are actually doing the thing that they do in a game. They're doing it in practice. They're catching the football.
You could also learn a lot about a media member by where he gravitates to in practice. Mitch, you're a skill position guy. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some others might just like want to get in the trenches the whole time, like, and just be with those guys in the trenches. And you can tell, hey, maybe, that was your specialty when you were younger and played the game of football. So, all right, that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Nebraska. We'll be back on Friday with fresh takes from Lincoln. Thank you for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On College Football podcast. Make that your second listen. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. Find the link to Locked On College Football in the description of this show so you don't need to search. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.